what's about what happened. I just left the courtroom. The judge extended the court for an extra hour. Now, a couple of things happened. You guys know what happened about juror number 6. The judge said that no, he was untruthful. There were omissions. You cannot have that in a court of law. However, as I'm sure you've heard, okay, and I got a lot of notes, Xavier Donaldson, I believe, stood up and made an impassioned plea about the way the Southern District of New York, it's the Bronx, all the juries are usually all white. We cannot just exclude and let jurors go without giving him a chance to explain. He thought he should have been brought in, juror number 6, and explain. Because if juror number 6 goes, right, you have to look at the jurors. I thought they just pick one randomly, but a person moves over one, right? And if you move over one, that means he will be replaced by an older white gentleman. Xavier Donaldson said we need to look at the optics, okay? But you guys, I said, so here's the thing. The judge kicked everybody out the chambers. It was so dramatic. I waited. They started talking about the evidentiary chart, the summaries, all this like legal paperwork. And I stayed there for an extra hour. Why? Because I got some tea. Y'all, remember when we told you guys that Brendan Paul had flipped on Diddy and everybody was like, Tisa, what are you talking about? Tisa, what are you talking about? Do you not know that he just got, it was his first offense, so he got a rehab disposition program? And I said, I don't care what y'all say. I know what a flip looks like when I see one. Well, guess what? So does the federal government. Brendan Paul, I was in the courtroom. I stayed an extra hour. He is confirmed to have flipped on Diddy, and he is testifying on behalf of the prosecution. And Nak, what's up? How y'all doing today? Listen. Listen, I was writing my notes down. I was doing everything. I just left the courthouse and had to run here. We stayed so close. The courthouse closes at 6 and you got to get off their property. That's why I had to run home because they were like, yeah, you can't go live on the property. I heard it with my own ears. Brendan Paul, Diddy's rug mule, is confirmed. I repeat, confirmed to be a surprise witness. And he is testifying next week. I have the exact date, right? Potent Pondering said the pink eyeshadow is TASF. Y'all like it? Half the makeup wore off. I'm trying to do what I can. Shout out to Marie. Also, just a little bit for you guys. Don't forget, you guys can catch me on Nancy Grace. If you want to have a town hall, I'm going live on Spoutable at exactly 7 p.m. in 25 minutes. I'm going live on Spoutable. What is Spoutable? It's like a safer, better, more ethical Twitter. Forget all that. Here's what you need to know. The link is in the description box, and the link is going to be pinned in the chat. Okay, click on the link. You guys can come and listen if you guys want. However, if you do get an account, it only takes a second to sign up, you will be able to chat with me. Think of Spoutables. It's a pod. It's kind of like Twitter Spaces. It's exactly like Twitter Spaces, but more safe. We were going to be talking. You can ask me everything about it. Went down today. Today was a huge day in the Diddy trial. You can ask me everything that went down. You can ask me how people were acting, what was going on. We can have discussions. It can be a town hall. I think like literally so many people can come into the pod. It's going to be a good time. At least 20 people can speak at once. Actually, more people might be able. I might just unmute everybody's mic and let the town hall go crazy. But at the very least, I think it'd be a great day. A lot of you guys wanted me to start doing a weekly recap, a Q&A. I will be on Spoutable at 7 o'clock. You guys can talk with me. It's going to be like a Twitter Spaces. It'll be really fun. But let me tell you a little bit, right? Exactly. Let's talk about it, right? Listen, again, Brendan Paul is going to be testifying next week. The exact day he is going to be testifying is, hold on. I took so many notes. Gosh, too many notes, right? And here's the thing. Yes, you might be able to get this information from a tweet thread, but you guys, I was actually there. I heard the body language. I was watching all this unfold. This was no casual thing, okay? Brendan Paul is going to testify as Diddy's assistant. He's testifying on Monday. I repeat, Brendan Paul is testifying on Monday as Diddy's assistant. They said that Brendan Paul is in the employment, right? Now, here's the thing. Diddy's team tried to get his testimony struck and saying he shouldn't be allowed to testify, and any messages from Brendan Paul shouldn't be included in the summary chart. The government is making the summary chart. We're going to talk about that in a second because that's really, really good to all these people saying, well, I don't believe Mia. I don't believe Jane. I don't believe Cassie. That's what happened. Let me see if I can move this around a little bit. That's what happens with bad juju. That's what happens with the summary chart, okay? Now, he's testifying. The Diddy's team tried to get it thrown out and to be like, no, I don't think it's fair that he has the right to, welcome to my dirty room. I don't think he's fair. He doesn't have the right to say it because we don't know the nature of Brendan's employment. Well, according to Little Rod, Brendan's employment was as Diddy's rug mule. You know what the funny thing about this is, right? Diddy should have just paid Little Rod his $50K because he did not pay Little Rod his money. Little Rod's lawsuit looks like it was the basis for his house getting raided. And once his house got raided, everything else went down, down, down. The smartest thing Diddy ever did was hire Mark Agnifilio, Yana, to speed track the trial because the feds were planning to investigate his mo, from what the streets are saying, for 2 to 3 years. The feds were planning to investigate him for a lot, get into international stuff. However, since Diddy rushed the trial to May, and they had to have, I think, the enterprise letter by, I think, like February 15th or February 27th, that shortened what they could investigate. But they still said, we went with the crimes that we know, and you've committed a lot of crimes, okay? You guys, also, 7 p.m. tonight, I pinned it in the chat. Join me on Spoutable. I'll be doing a live Q&A podcast, and of course, I will give you guys an ample opportunity to talk, right? Listen, when you say that the feds were on him since 2009, maybe New York State, maybe California, but the Southern District of New York didn't have Diddy on their radar until that Little Rod lawsuit and until that Cassie lawsuit. That's when Diddy got on the radar. Cassie and that Douglas Wigler, even though he settled 24 hours later, that got Diddy on the Southern District of New York's radar. Little Rod's lawsuit got, in my opinion, got that search warrant rolling. All those people that think that Diddy might have offered Mia about $1 million or more to settle, saying, oh, sometimes it's cheaper just to settle with people, you're forgetting the fact that Diddy is notoriously cheap. So cheap that he actually got his own self-investigated, all because. So again, Brendan Paul, if you guys don't know who Brendan Paul was the man in Little Rod's lawsuit that he said that, he's Diddy's rug mule. And he said that KK was his co-conspirator, right? Diddy's team said that's all lies. You can't believe Little Rod. He just be capping it up. However, when they raided him, they actually found Brendan with Diddy with the happy sack. Diddy love a pouch and he love a happy sack. With a happy sack full of rugs, right? A happy sack full of rugs, and that's how they got it. Now, when Brendan Paul was released, I said, that boy flipped. Y'all were like, you don't understand, if it's your first offense. And I said, y'all must be crazy. You don't know the way the feds work. The feds will lock up your grandmother if they can, if it will make you talk. The fact that this man, right? The fact that this kid from this good Midwest family, right? His family actually has some money. He met Brendan Paul when he was a basketball player. Brendan Paul wanted to be a producer. He turned into Diddy's rug mule, setting up free calls for him and whatnot. Brendan Paul knows where all the bodies are buried, and they have all the text messages. Okay, they're also getting into summary charts. Right now, this is something we need to pay attention to. Abraham Robertson, T said, you're working your butt off, keeping us updated. You deserve all the success and the growth. Thank y'all. Also, Zandria Robertson. Yeah. Said, is Easter egg still the code word? No, it's going to be a different code word, all right? Jules said, thanks for all your hard work. Appreciate you, Tisa. Also, Live Your Truth said, thanks for all the updates. You're doing a great job. Thank you so much. Katrinka Payne said, AKA Grace's grandmother. Yay, you caught a live. Also, Chaos Forever said, to be honest, most of you, oh, stop it, Chaos Forever. Thank y'all so much. Okay, so Brendan Paul was a part of Little Rod's lawsuit. We get the fact that, again, The funny thing is, if Brendan Paul is testifying for the government, and again, so they did the summary charts. What took so long while we were waiting to see what the judge did with the 6th juror? And we'll talk about that in the Spoutable Pod. The link is there. Join me. We are going to have a live town hall discussion a la Twitter Spaces, right? It's going to be at 7 p.m. I'm leaving here exactly and then going over to Spoutable so you guys can talk back to me, right? You don't got to show your face. It's all going to be. Also, right? Hold on. Do I have power? What's going on with my phone? Oh, okay. So anyway, right? The whole point of the matter is, the reason I stayed so long is because they were doing exhibits for the summary chart. Now, this was actually very important, okay? The exhibits for the summary chart is something big. I think it actually might even be bigger than whether juror number 6 is struck, right? Because the summary chart ties everything together. I just thought it was linking hotel records to this and that, but it goes further. They're taking people's text messages that they got from the raid, D-Rock's, KK's, everybody's messages that they got in the raid from Diddy's phones and from the subpoena phones. And they're matching that up to not only timeline, but testimony. So when everybody was like, oh, Mia's a liar, but Mia said that she got a message from D-Rock and she threw the phone and she was so scared. And then Diddy reached out and then this and that. Not only do you have the messages tied to, this is where Mia testified to this. Here's the message from D-Rock. Here's what Mia testified. Here's the other message to D-Rock. Here's when she said that Diddy called her. Here's the other message tying it to this moment in the testimony. But it goes more because the summary chart actually shows, and guess what? Here's what was happening in the background. Why D-Rock was reaching out to Mia, and Mia was like, I knew this was Diddy trying to reach out to me. Guess what? They have the messages from D-Rock to Diddy being like, yo, I reached out. Yo, she ain't hit me back. Yo, what you want me to say? They had Diddy on the side texting her in between. So it'd be like, D-Rock texts Mia. D-Rock connects with Mia. And then it shows what's happening in the background. Diddy contacts D-Rock. Diddy tells D-Rock that says this to Mia. Diddy tells this and that. D-Rock's like, y'all, man, she not answering. All right, I'm going to reach out to her. It shows where all the people were testifying, what was going in the background, but it also proves the RICO that Diddy is the alleged mastermind. Because no matter who was talking to Cassie, who was talking to Jane, who was talking to Mia, who was talking to Capricorn Clark, who was orchestrating things with Kid Cudi, who was talking to who else? Who said the brown owl? Who else in that? No matter what was going on, Diddy was orchestrating everything and telling everyone what to say, what to do, whether Cassie could go walk, whether Jane could do this. Again, this summary chart is going to show the way. Here's all the actions. Here's what the witnesses said, and here's how Diddy was orchestrating. Here's how Diddy was orchestrating it, okay? I would have gone live from the courthouse. However, they shut that courthouse down at 6 o'clock, and I stayed to the very end to get you guys the tea. I know you could have read it on the tweet, but baby, aren't you glad you actually have my thing, right? Again, there was so much that was going on. Also, we're going to have to talk about juror number 6. Did you guys hear the reason why he's being excluded? If you don't, I'm going to give you all the dramatic reinterpretation, right? Also, Judge Aaron literally looked at Brian Still. Brian Still tried to bring that Fulton County nonsense into the Southern District of New York court. Brian Still tried to stand there and make a thing about the court's been known about this. They've been known about juror 6. They've been known this. Brian Still stood up and did this whole grandstand about this is nothing new. Interesting enough, he's like, and now that there's always talk about jurors nodding or smiling or talking or being sympathetic, now all of a sudden they want to make an issue of it. Judge Aaron literally looked at Brian Still and said, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? No one knew about this, right? No one knew about this, okay? Again, I literally put lol, Brian Still, here's where we go, right? Brian Still was like, Your Honor, hold on. He said, Your Honor, after weeks of trial, we're like, what, on the 6th week of trial? After weeks of trial and a voir dire that we were very intensive for, right? right? And now that we see all this talk about, now that we see all this talk about jurors making faces and body language and all this stuff, and I said, it's interesting the defense sees that. The defense must think juror number 6 is aware, right? Listen, and all this stuff. Now all of a sudden there's a problem with juror number 6. Your Honor, I think people are trying to game the system. Look, Your Honor, everybody knew about this. Everybody knew about this with juror number 6. And now y'all pick a name when we're more than halfway through to make an issue. It seems like this is how people game the system, right? I feel like people saying, and the public's going to say, why are they doing this now? Why are you bringing juror number 6 up now? Why now? Listen, the whole time he was talking, I even saw Tinny Garris go shaking her head like, right? Judge Aaron looked at Brian's daughter. He did this whole Young Thug YSL grandstand. And I get it. It worked in Fulton County because Fulton County had so much corruption. They were just so improper. It worked for Fulton County. But Judge Aaron is running a tight ship that is above reproach. Judge Aaron looked at them and said, what are you talking about? He literally was like, it was like a 12-second pause. He's like, what are you talking about? I literally put lol, right? What are you talking about? He said, I don't know about the defense and what you guys knew, but the court just found out about this. And the court found out about it by accident off of a throwaway that the juror number 6 said to somebody in the robing room. The robing room is the room that the jury waits in while they're waiting to be seated and called into court. He said, he's like, the explanation, he said, even when you talk about like, oh, we've known about this since voir dire, even when we asked juror number 6, what is your explanation? What say you? The explanation happened after voir dire. So how can you say the court knew? Again, it was very, very serious issues. And that would have been, had he been telling the truth or knew what he was talking about, that would have been motion for a mistrial. But unfortunately, he did not know what he was talking about. He did not, or whatever, and it just moved on, right? They said that the jury, right? Oh, also, interesting enough, Justin was sitting there, and maybe he was stretching, but Justin Combs was sitting there with his arms spread out, and on both sides, his fists were balled up, and he was squeezing them to the point of his knuckles, where, like, his hands were stretched out, and he was leaning over the, what do you call it, where the, he was leaning over where the, where we're sitting in the benches in the gallery, right? And his hands were outstretched, but they were balled up while the judge was talking about dismissing the juror, and they were turning bright pink. It was the oddest thing, right? Anyway, I will say this, right? Tinny Garagos and the government stood up and was like, Your Honor, first the U.S. attorney was like, we just want to go on record that we knew nothing about, listen, listen, I don't know if Justin was rage or not, but I was sitting one row, there was one row in between us. I saw what I saw. Now, he could have been stretching over the things, but he was stretched out looking at the judge, and his knuckles, he was squeezing his hands so tight, his knuckles were turning red on either side. Maybe it was anxiety. Maybe it's the anticipation. Again, this is their dad's life. I'm telling y'all what I saw, though, all right? I'm telling y'all what I'm saying, right? And you listen. So anyway, the government stood up and they were like, yo, excuse me, I just want to go on the record. Whatever Brian Still's talking about, we don't know anything about that. We didn't know. We're just finding out for the first time. The odd thing was Tinny Garagos stood up and was like, Your Honor, that goes double for the defense. We have not heard, and this is our first time hearing about it, true. After that, Brian still got banished. So there's 2 rows of lawyers. There's a row of lawyers in front of Diddy. This is all defense. And then there's rows of lawyers behind Diddy. Brian Still has been sitting by Diddy's side the whole trial. Brian Still got moved. Diddy told him to go sit in front of him. Brian Still just stayed quiet for the rest of the time, sitting in front of Diddy. Now let's talk about why the juror got removed, okay? Listen, this is why. Well, here's the thing. The judge says Xavier Donaldson, who's an excellent attorney, made a very impassioned, I will say, Westmoreland, Xavier Donaldson, and Brian Still, well, not Brian Still today, but usually they are doing a bang-up job. Mark Agnifilio actually got on the ones and twos, too, and stopped that whole, oh, golly shuck. You know, Yana. He got on the ones and twos and actually was pushing back, too. And Tinny Garagos, listen, they said that, so here's what happened. He said he looked at the transcript in the voir dire and also in the juror department. And he said, he said, first of all, the implication that this is brought forth by the government is just insulting. What actually happened was it was an offhanded convo in the jury department, right? And they just asked, they were talking about something, I don't know, Jersey. And juror number 6 said, yo, I recently moved to New Jersey. I moved in with my girlfriend. That's where I'm staying for the last couple of weeks. Now, I know something like this happened in the Young Thug trial, the YSL trial, but we're not even 6 weeks in. You didn't know you was moving to Jersey, but get this. He said, that's where I've been staying for the last couple of weeks. I'm staying there most of the time. I'm not sure how long I'm going to stay there, right? However, right? This is what said while the jurors were like waiting outside in the hallway, okay? So then get this. The court called the juror in and they asked him, they called him privately. Are you still staying in Jersey? No, are you still staying in New York? He said to the court, well, yeah, Monday through Friday, I stay in New York City. I've been working in New York City, right? Then they asked the juror, well, does your child live in a New Jersey apartment? He said, no, they don't. They live in New York with me. Now, they said on voir dire, they asked that man, who do you live with? He said, I live with my aunt in the Bronx in an apartment with my girlfriend and my child, okay? So then he told the person in the jury department a throwaway comment, yo, I live out in Jersey with my girlfriend and my fiance. Now, I said, spoiler alert, what if he got a girlfriend and a fiance and they both got a baby? Spoiler alert, right? But then when he was questioned, because the thing is, it's not about whether he moved. It's not really about his residence. It's the fact that you must be not only honest, but completely forthcoming with the judge. And during voir dire. They said I was talking to Bernard from Burden of Proof on ABC. Y'all probably know her. Make sure you go catch her out. She is a brilliant former prosecutor. She said that the two main questions that they asked are your residency and whether you have a criminal record. And they expect you to be 100% proactive, even over-explaining, right? Now, they then said that, he then said, no, my girlfriend has an apartment in New Jersey where the daughter lives, and I've been visiting them, right? So they said that there's 3 different answers between the voir dire, the roving room, and where you live in the Bronx, and who you live with, whether you live with your fiance and baby, right? And if you even live in the apartment with your aunt, or if you live in New Jersey with your daughter and fiance, right? They said there's the voir dire issue and the roving room issue, right? And where there's some suggestion that 1, the juror can't follow simple instructions, or 2, that in the voir dire process, there are serious questions about candor. Then when there are alternates, the juror has to be removed. Hold on really quick. Let me just get to these super chats really quick. Let me just get to a commercial message really quick, and then we will continue with all that. Hold on, y'all. Okay, 1 second. Okay. Bossosaurus 9305 said, Tisa, you're killing it out there. My boyfriend and I watch you all the time and get excited to see you on Nancy. Keep it up. You have great things coming your way. Stay safe out there. Thank you so much, Bossosaurus. Alejandro Arando, people, thank you. Melinda Smith, thank you. Latina Fairy 14, thank you. Nicola, thank you. Deborah Space said, hey, beautiful. Been here since your avatar. I've got too much to say, honey. Do you have an email? Adore you from the 55-year-old grandma in Texas. Of course, Deborah. My email is tisatells@gmail.com. Penelope Ramchandar, thank you so much. Blessed 1952, thank you for being a member for 5 months. At Tisa, thank you for all your excellent coverage. Thank you. You're doing an exemplary job. Let your light continue to shine like a diamond. Love you. Thank you. Rose Savita, thank you so much for joining the chat. Katie all day said, new sub. You love my reporting. Thank you. Rose Sidova, thank you for joining the family. Jennifer Servino, thank you. Chaos Forever. Thank you again. Listen, you guys, listen. We're 2 minutes away. In the chat, pinned in the chat and in the description box. I'm going live on Spoutable in less than 2 minutes. And baby, when I tell you we are going to be talking, it's going to be a town hall, like a Twitter space. You can join, you can talk, you can pepper me with questions. I got lots more tea. You don't need to sign up to listen, but if you want to talk, it takes 2 seconds to sign up. You know how it is. You can delete that app when it's done. But I believe on Spoutable every week, I'm going to start doing a weekly recap, which is a town hall where y'all can talk to me and all that other stuff. All right, you guys. So I'll see y'all on Spoutable. Talk to y'all later.